Hey guys, welcome to Massive Iron Live. I am Steve Shaw, live from where are we at? Chicago, near the airport, O'Hara Airport. Thought I'd drop into a live. I will be headed to Scotland this evening, flying out about 10 p.m. So I'm going to go hit a workout here at LA Fitness shortly. Thought I would do a live video. Been a while. Trying to squeeze them in while I can. I think I'm going to try to do a live video while I am in Scotland as well. So appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to be here for, I don't know, as long as you guys have some questions. So fire up your questions. I don't care what your questions about training, diet, nutrition, supplements, off-topic stuff, whatever. This is your guys' forum. I'm just glad to interact with you guys. So let me know where you guys are at. Give me a shout out. What's going on, Tom? Let me know if you guys are training this weekend. I'm going to be doing. I've been doing my Drunk Russian program. Me and my wife have been doing it. She's hiding back there reading what books on Scotland.
I have.
Yeah, she. Hey, CEDT, how you doing? Thank you for your support. Here's my lovely wife reading books about Scotland.
Too, so we know where to go and have play, fun, and eat.
Yes, and eat.
All the nasty food.
Nate is military stationed in England. Scotland is beautiful. I hope you're having a good day, Nate, and stay safe. Again, I'll stay on as long as you guys have questions, so fire them up on any topic. If my voice sounds like shit or gives out or whatever, I think I've been dealing with walking pneumonia for the last 3 weeks. We went out, all this running in the cold is jacking me up. I'd also like to know before the question, or let you guys know before the questions start to roll in. I added a members only section. It's just a little join button you can find on all the videos. I'm adding a recipe content, insider stories, that sort of thing. It's only $2.99 a month. So if you want some of the stuff that I don't normally share on the regular channel, come on and join up. There's also some really good discounts if you go levels above that, and so on and so forth. So check that out. Let's see, Tim Laubensheimer, cardio to lifting ratio. Not really a ratio. I mean, lifting comes down to a lot of times these are really about what you can schedule in, what works for you. When I am dealing with a client, I like to know their lifestyle, what equipment they have access to. In general, I recommend an hour of cardio each week, something that elevates your heart rate. As far as lifting, really for good results, as long as you have a good amount of, focus on progression, you probably need about 3 hours in the gym. And that's not a rule. That's just a general guideline. 3 hours in the gym, maybe 4 if you want to train 4 days a week. 3 to 4 hours in the gym and an hour of cardio is a good general guideline for the average lifter. So very good question. Juan Cantu, any tips you can share for somebody who just started strongman training? Very good question. I would probably say ease into it. Let your body adapt to the specific movements. Like when you're doing a single arm overhead press, it's very different from doing a 2-arm overhead press. I would say let your body adapt to the movements. Ease into things, over the course of a month or maybe 6 weeks. Don't overwork those things. You don't want to overwork the same movements, too much. The strongmen I know, and I'm no expert at strongman training, but I've been around a few, they will do like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, strength training workouts. And then on Saturday, they'll do like event type of workouts. So don't overwork the movement patterns. And just get to know your exercises before you start to push them. Another big thing is don't be maxing out on stuff, in training. Training is training. Training is to build strength, and to show strength, you compete, right? You compete. So one thing I would do also is talk to some people in the area, find a good competition that's maybe 4 to 6 months down the road, and I would sign up. Just go have fun, experience it. Don't put pressure on yourself. See if you like it. See if you want to continue doing it. And, get your nutrition squared away. Get your nutrition consistent. Hey, big hairy ugly dude. Greetings from Peru. How's it going, Peru? That might be my first Peruvian follower, so I appreciate your support. Hope you're having a good day. Tom, No questions. I'm doing push-pull legs and an arm day. More caffeine. I'll have a question. Sounds good. I got my caffeine right here. Let me indulge a little bit. I'll let you guys know if any of you need training for coaching services. Hit me up on Instagram at Ben the Barman, at Ben the Barman, at Ben the Barman, or email me benthebarman@gmail.com. I'll be in Scotland for 10 days, but I got two client slots. So if you're interested, hit me up. Fat loss, strength training, muscle building, whatever it is. I just enjoy helping, whatever the goal is. Noah, do you think something like yoga or dynamic stretching is counterproductive to powerlifting? No, not at all. Not at all. The only thing I feel really counterproductive to powerlifting, let me just adjust the camera, would be you don't want to do stretching before you lift, because there is some indication, I'm no expert on this, but I've read some of the information that it could potentially, cause you to be a little bit weaker during your workout. Mileage may vary. Some of this is up to personal experience and, body feedback. The only thing, if powerlifting is your goal specifically to compete on the platform, I wouldn't overdo cardio type of work. I would do something that's low impact to keep your joints healthy, like an elliptical or a treadmill at a slight incline, something like that. Something that gets your heart rate up, that improves your conditioning, because improving your conditioning will only help, with powerlifting. But you don't want to overdo it. You don't want to overdo something that would beat up your joints. Yoga or stretching is fine. Yoga is probably pretty darn good. A lot of people are talking about mobility issues, and I have no personal experience with yoga beyond, my conversations with Alan Roberts. Yoga is something I would like to try. I wish I had more time to try it, but such is life. But no, I think it's probably actually a good thing as far as mobility and overall, just general health. Bristlecone Camp Company. Bristlecone Camp Company. Hey, big hairy ugly dude, training right now in the garage, low bar squats. Okay to have bar on shelf of muscle at base of traps or under scapular spine. Is it okay? I know what you're talking about, at the base of the traps. Is it okay to place it there? Absolutely. You don't want to feel like, everybody's different, right? Different degree of muscle mass in their upper back and in that whole media area. The one thing you want to be really cautious about, really careful about, is that you don't feel the bar ramming into your spine in any way. That probably wouldn't be a good thing. I'm no doctor, but that probably wouldn't be a good thing. But as long as it feels good right under under the traps, that's good to go. So have a good workout and stay safe and stay smart. Tereas, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, scold me. Do you believe in body recompositioning? He is at 165, 5'7", 18%. Yes, I do. I've had a client do it. It's very difficult to do. Very difficult, because you really have to work your ass off. And a lot of it comes down to luck. If you are a beginner from a strength standpoint, relative beginner, you have a greater likelihood of that occurring. With that said, I am not a big fan of trying to recomp. If you think you need to lose fat, and you're 18 to 20% body fat, honestly, you probably got 2 months, maybe 6 weeks of dieting to do. Get that over with, and then go on a slow, steady, controlled lean bulk, something where you're not gaining a lot of weight. That's a better option. Trying to recomp is like hunting for ghosts. You might hear a creak. Is that some muscle growing? I don't know. I don't like chasing recomping. I like to chase one goal at a time. So I hope that helps some. Avaram Nihar. Tips to get to a 405 bent row, not Pendley. Is there any exercise that builds this one? Not really. And sorry to burst your bubble, but really I find heavy rows help with deadlifts, but deadlifts generally don't help with heavy rows, if that makes sense. What I do recommend, and my main advice for you, is to really attack your back strength with a well-rounded program. Do your bent over rows, do heavy ass dumbbell rows with straps, do seated cable rows, do lat pull downs, do inverted rows, all that kind of good stuff. Just get your back strong on a myriad of exercises. 4 or 5 is hard on. I got to 4 or 5 by 5 on pendlay rows. The more of a bent over row where your body's kind of in this position, and you're just doing that shortened range of motion. It's shortened relative to a pendlay row. That can be tough because your lower back is in more of a position where you're going to put strain on it. So just be smart with that. My only advice: get your back strong, and it might take time. Be patient. Stay safe. Terea says, I'm a beginner, max benches, body weight for reps. So yeah, you could probably do it, but you'd probably have to run at like maintenance. And, there's nothing wrong with chasing that for 4 to 6 months, but you're going to have to get a lot stronger than you are now. And that means whatever expectations you have for strength, if they're right here, you're probably going to have to take it to that next level. The client that I had recomp went from 220, 5'6", 220, never touched a barbell before. And when he got down to 165, he was squatting 315 for nearly 10 reps after like 6 months, okay? He girded up his big juicy testicles and gained a lot of strength. This guy killed it in the gym. For a recomp to even be a slight possibility, you're going to have to dramatically increase your strength, safely, of course. Robert, is there any true benefit to fasted cardio? Well, there are benefits to everything, pros and cons. There's no benefit from a fat burning standpoint. Anything like this, there are studies, many studies that have been done on this, and really, no. In the long run, it's going to come down to a calorie deficit. It's going to come down to consistent cardio. So, there's no true benefit. The thing I don't like to do is do cardio with any substantial amount of food in my stomach. It just doesn't feel right. I feel sluggish. I feel like crap. So there are benefits to doing it, just not for fat loss. Fat loss is pretty simple. You just have to eat less food, make good food choices, increase your exercise a little bit, nothing extreme, and just be patient. Think lifestyle. Modern Stoic, how's it going? Chris, hey, how would you deload? Chris, I'm not a big fan of the deload. Not a big fan. There are certain programs where deloads are built in, and that is usually a program that is trying to get you to overreach. And then once you overreach, you deload a little bit, let your fatigue rescind, let your fatigue levels improve, and then your conditioning is still up here, but your fatigue is lessening, and then your strength is really going to shine. So there are some cases programming wise where a deload is a smart thing. Here's what I prefer for most of you. I prefer that you keep days off intuitive. When you get sick, take time away from the gym. When a birthday party or a life event or a wedding is coming up on the weekend, take time away from the gym. When you feel like absolute crap, beat up, destroyed, then take a day off from the gym. I like to keep it intuitive, and honestly, I think intuitive rest is a much better option for most average trainees that are not on a program designed to overreach, if that makes sense. All right, guys, before I continue, keep the questions coming. A reminder, I have a new members only section. I'm adding content that I don't normally add here, recipes, insider stories, some interesting insider stories. I added one about Mr. North Carolina trying to scam me, just stuff like that. So check that out. It's only $2.99 a month. If you're interested in coaching, hit me up on Instagram at Ben the Barman, at Ben the Barman. I have 2 slots left. All right, end commercial. Name is CHIOS, Chios, 1761. Will you and Alan ever do another collab? I would never rule it out. I talk to Alan every single day. I'm a moderator in his group. And Alan is a good friend of mine. I would do anything to support Alan. But, me and Alan have a lot going on. Alan's in Florida. I'm in Ohio. When we look at content, the question is, we're trying to serve trying to serve the viewers with good content. So if if the opportunity came up where we had a topic and we wanted to chime in together, absolutely, the stars might align one day. Until then, I'll continue to support Alan and so on and so forth. But we'll see. I started to do a few collab interviews on the channel. Haven't had much time lately. Honestly, in my personal life, I've started to do wellness coaching and taking on a lot of stuff locally, so it's been a little bit more difficult to add things to my plate. But I'll always remain one of Alan's biggest friends, or not friends, one of Alan's biggest friends too. Modern Stoic: would doing only seated overhead press increase standing overhead press? That's a very good question. I will preface this by saying, I don't know, I've been training for 34 years. Probably for 30 years, I only did seated pressing, seated dumbbell pressing. I got to 120s for fives, maybe 10s. I can't remember. Don't hold me to it. And seated overhead press, 315 for a rep. I had that on video somewhere. And seated behind the neck press, 315 for one. I've always done a lot of seated. The reason why I prefer that is they feel more stable for me. And because of that, I feel like it treats my shoulders a little bit better. So to answer your question, I find value in both, but I find value in seated because if you can get really strong at seated with no momentum at all, none at all. If you move over to incorporating standing, you're going to have that base strength. Plus, you're going to have just a little bit more English, if you know what I'm saying. So I wouldn't view it as either or. I would probably recommend, and what I typically do for most trainees is recommend doing both. There's value in doing seated because you're building strength without any leg involvement at all, other than having your legs nice and tight and braced, if that makes sense. All right, guys, keep the questions coming. Tosh Treychoff, hope I pronounced that correctly. If pull-ups are the best lat builder, what's the point of doing rows? The back is a very complex system. Has a very complex musculature system. It's not just lats. All right. Pull-ups are a good back exercise, but if you look at my back, the pictures of my backs are built on rows, and a shit ton of rows, barbell rows and dumbbell rows. I've always sucked at pull-ups. 90% of my back work is rows. Heavy ass weight is the benefit. You're going to get thickness by challenging yourself with heavy ass weight. Pull-ups are a good exercise. But here's what you need to understand when it comes to upper body physiology, and I've talked about this before. The movement planes, okay? You have a vertical press and a vertical pull, which is a lat pull down. You have a horizontal press and a horizontal pull. This is the way the body is designed to move. You want to have both a vertical pull or a lat pull down and a vertical or horizontal row. They hit the back differently, hit different focus on different muscles of the back. You need both, and you need to get strong at both. So I hope that helps. See, I love the tree. I love that tree as well. In gym right now. This is great info. Appreciate your support. Thank you for tuning in. Avaram Nihar, thank you. Big hairy ugly dude, thank you for your support. Sebastian Rue with a silent X. Tips for increasing squat. My heaviest is 3 reps of 100 kilograms. I can only seem to recover from 5 sets per movement. 15 total sets per workout. That's about where, that's about the sweet spot where I recommend folks train 15 to 18 sets per workout, because if you're working them hard, that's probably a good range to be in for the average person. First off, if your squat is 100 kilograms, you shouldn't be doing 3 rep sets. There's no value in that. You want to be doing some reps. You want to be doing some rep work. You're gonna have to, rep work will help you increase your work capacity. Squats over time will never really get easier. They won't. But by adding some rep work, working in the 6 to 10 rep range, you're gonna work on your work capacity. So it's just a really good idea. You also want to do a lot of quad work. Quad work is not something talked about in strength training. God knows why, not talked about often. But the quads are a big muscle group. And if you want to improve your squat and deadlift, there is no downside in doing a lot of additional quad work outside of squats. High squats, leg presses, front squats, whatever you want to do. So, as far as improving your squat, add a little bit more volume, and make sure you focus on your quads as well. Building up your quads, do some leg presses, do some front squats, do some hack squats, whatever it is. Just get in some quad strengthening work outside of just squats. So I hope that helps. The Blazing Lion. Let me get some caffeine here. I struggle gaining strength while cutting. Any tips? Don't cut. That's it. Everybody does. That's just the way it is. But you got to understand your goal right now is to cut. All you can control is your effort. And if you are pushing appropriately in the gym, you're good to go. You can only focus on what you can control. If your effort is good while you're cutting, it's going to happen. When I lost 100 pounds, all my numbers went way down. I lost like 100 pounds on my bench press. Nothing you can do really to combat that other than focus on what you can control, and that's the effort. One thing you need to understand about cutting, though, is muscle memory is a real thing. When you fortify a cell, strengthen a cell, you're strengthening the mitochondria in that cell for life. It's like putting an addition on the room. When you're cutting, you might empty the furniture out of that room, but when you come back after your cut is done, that cell is still fortified, and that cell is going to be ready to go again. When I lost my weight, my bench press was down to like 315 for a couple reps. It sucked ass. It sucked. And a couple of years later, it moved to over 405 in the gym, about 405, 410, and that was stronger than it was when I was a fat ass. So focus on what you can control and get that weight off, and you'll that's all you can do. Tosh, I have a labrum injury and squats cause shoulder pains for me. Can I build big legs and heavy RDLs with heavy RDLs, leg press, and hack squats? You can build big legs with RDLs, leg press, and hack squats. One thing I will say is, and I'm not sure the nature of your injury, but if you have pain from squatting, one thing you could try is widening your grip. That might help as well. So give that a try. I'm not a doctor, not giving you medical advice, but sometimes everybody does these narrow grips. And sometimes by widening your grip, you might feel it's better for your shoulders. All right, guys, I'm going to keep the questions coming. Just a reminder, I have a members only section. Please join. $2.99 a month. Insider content that things I can't really talk about on the main channel, like stories I've had with other industry fitness celebrities, and I'm going to be putting up recipe content, stuff like that, and just some fun content. So check that out. Lincoln Shoemaker. Since deload were mentioned, I noticed that about 4 weeks into a training block, I get really bad gastrointestinal distress and have a harder time sleeping. Just curious if this is normal. Exercise can cause gut issues. Diving into the world of endurance running, one thing I've learned is that exercise can cause issues with the gut. Absolutely. So is it normal for lifting? Not always. The only thing I would tell you to do is listen to your body. If after 4 weeks something's going wrong, you might want to have somebody, a second pair of eyes, look at your diet to make sure, all your bases are covered, that you're getting in all your good micronutrients, that, it looks like a healthy diet. Beyond that, I would strongly consider taking a probiotic just as a backup plan. They're inexpensive. And Tums, check out Tums. Tums for the tummy, right? But Tums are something we take when we're doing endurance running. They may help. They may help with stomach acid, things like that. So that's my best advice for you. I hope that helps some. Spike. I work as a mariner on a 3-week on, 3-week off schedule. During work, I have no access to a weight room, but I have ample time during my days off. What working out twice a day accelerate progress? Generally not. You'd be better off. You'd be better off having a little bit more volume. Really, what it's going to come down to, it's not so much about working twice a day. Progression and a reasonable amount of volume. You got to be careful not to beat yourself up. So you might want to do a little bit more volume, maybe 25, 30% more. Be smart about it. Listen to your body. Take care of your body. Don't focus on working out twice a day, but focus on progressing, maybe doing a little bit more volume, if that makes sense. Carl, do you still enjoy cigars? I'm going to get my wife over here to answer this question. I recently found your other channel. They seem to stop like a year ago. Yeah, I don't have much time. Right now, we own a downtown business property, so there's really no place for me to sit in my backyard and smoke. But I do enjoy cigars. What did you get me for Christmas?
I got you a pack of Davidoff. Oh, Davidoff. I didn't know the full name.
Yeah,
David. I went and researched and bought you the top ones that exist.
I love Davidoff. The problem with Davidoff is they're like 18 to 23 bucks a pop.
Well,
and I'm not Donald Trump.
It cost me like $80 for 3 of them.
Yeah. So yeah, I do love cigars. I don't enjoy them as frequently, but yeah, man, I'm a big cigar fan. Someday when I'm old and can sit on the back porch every day and have more time, I'll enjoy them more often. Big cigar fan. Big whiskey fan. And I've been getting into scotch lately, and I'm finding I'm enjoying scotch more than whiskey. And a big beer fan. I love Russian Imperial Stouts with a kick, 8%, 10%, 12%. I love double and triple IPAs. I love stuff with a lot of flavor. I just got to be careful about that so I don't become a fat ass. Rob Wilson, keep the questions coming, guys. Don't hesitate to ask off-topic questions like that. Rob Wilson, doing a 3-day full body with 2 to 3 days of light cardio. Does the cardio mess with leg recovery? No, cardio will probably help with leg recovery over time. If you're pushing yourself for progression, your body's going to acclimate to both cardio and resistance training, and over time, it's not going to impact anything. You just got to be smart about your cardio. You don't want to enter like squats with overly fatigued legs. I would probably not do cardio the day before legs. Give your legs 48 hours of recovery, if that makes sense. Tosh, I can't do extension. Can I get a big arms with heavy presses and push downs? Yeah, you can. You absolutely can. That's the bread and butter of my tricep size, which is my arm size. Heavy pressing, volume. And then I'll add in some body weight stuff just for fun. Maybe some machine work when that is done. You don't necessarily need extensions. But heavy press downs. I do something called skull destroyers. So absolutely, as long as you got a good mix of exercise and you're progressing on them, you don't need to rely on one specific type of exercise to make good progress. Let's see, CED. I've been working out for 3 months, progressing fast, eating, sleeping a lot. That sounds good. Is 2x a week for vertical press pull and horizontal press pull enough volume? It can be. Really, everything has to boil down to weekly volume. So if you're doing all your movement patterns twice a week, you really probably want to make sure, when you're looking at your body parts, you want to be doing maybe 10 to 12 sets a week for shoulders and for chest, back maybe a little bit more, 12 to 14, and you want to make sure in that mix for back that you're doing your vertical pull and horizontal pull, etc. I like to do 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 vertical row or pull to, horizontal pull or row to vertical pull. That's just my preference. But don't look at to answer your question, is it enough? Well, as long as your sets are enough and you're working those sets and you're working for progression, they are absolutely enough. Psychic Bubblegum Man. You, sir, have the best name so far today, so give yourself a pat on the back, Psychic Bubblegum Man. Have you ever had problems with digestion ever, like diarrhea or puking, trying to gain more size? I have trouble at times. Occasionally, you work out so hard, you get the Ray shit skis. You know what I'm saying? The Ray Nitschkis, the shit skis, the diarrhea. Absolutely, but very rarely. I've never specifically had problems with that. Again, if you got digestive issues, the foundation is to probably start looking at your diet, ruling out the shit foods, white sugar, white flour, processed food, fast food, anything that might be triggering that. Sometime if you're eating a lot of veggie volume, it can give you the Ray shit skis. And definitely add like a probiotic. So that's my best advice. I'm no doctor, but when it comes to diet and gut issues, you might want to remove some of the crap foods and just add a probiotic and see if it helps. And then if not, you might want to see a doctor. Thaddeus says, how's Scotland? Thaddeus is my client. And I sent him a message last night saying I'd be flying into Scotland tonight at 10 p.m. So my client isn't actually reading my messages. He's skimming them. So I want you to go do 5 miles. Go hike 5 miles or run 5 miles today as punishment. We're in Chicago right now. We're going to Scotland tonight at 10 p.m. Anyway, I'm just giving him some shit. I talked to him this morning. Robert Wagner, do you have a go-to workout that you fall back on when life gets more hectic? Here's the thing, Robert. At my level of training, after 34 years, there's not a lot of gains in the tank, really. I've been as strong as I'm ever going to get. I've been as big as I'm ever going to get, unless I, start doing some ridiculous steroid cycles, which I'll never do.
Get big.
Yeah, I don't. But anyway, a fallback workout, not really. I mean, when I'm hectic, I just try to do as much as I can. Like today, we're a little bit hectic. I'm not going to lift. I might get 2 sessions in Scotland if I'm lucky. So I'm going to go do a drunk Russian. I'm going to do 2 sets per body part. I'm going to start with squats, do 2 sets for other things. So when life gets hectic, usually it's switching between what I call upper and posterior, or a full body, a really light volume full body. For the upper and posterior, what I do is, for my upper, I do chest, shoulders, and arms, and for my posterior, I do back and legs. I don't just like having 2 leg days a week, or a leg day, an upper lower split. I don't find value in that. I like to work legs and back. So that's usually what I do when life gets hectic. Do about 2 sets per body part. Philly the Killy, any bros in chat? Yo-hoo. There's probably a lot of bros in the chat, but you, sir, are the broiest of all the McBros. So have a nice day. WMW Animations. I've heard certain whey proteins are spiked. Is that true? Absolutely. You got to be really careful when you're dealing with whey protein, because certain additions, like I believe creatine and glutamine, will show up as more protein when they're analyzed, but it's not actual protein content. What they're doing, the reason why they're doing this, is because it shows up as protein content, but these are cheaper filler ingredients than whey protein, especially when the whey protein market gets tough. Back in the day, there was a protein powder called Muscle Gauge Nutrition, and I recall I used that for a long time, and I love that stuff. It tasted amazing. But you know what? I came to find out that they didn't have 24 grams of protein in it. It only had 14. They were spiking the crap out of that stuff. So you want to stick with a reputable company. You might want to spend a couple dollars more, but stick with somebody that makes a good powder. One of the bigger names, if that makes sense. Don't go for the cheap stuff. You get what you pay for when it comes to protein powder. And understand this. The cost of whey protein is going to be the cost of whey protein, right? Unless you're the biggest whey protein company in the industry, and in the bodybuilding industry, there's muscle building industry, there's not much of a difference with the big hitters. The cost is a cost. So if one protein powder is way cheaper than another, that's a huge red flag. That's a huge red flag. Tom, big hairy ugly dude, sets and reps for deadlifts on pull day. Barbell rows follow deadlifts, so you know. I like to 25 is kind of my cap generally if you're lifting with progression and a reasonable degree of intensity. 25 reps on deadlift is usually about where I go. Can you do more than that? Yeah, you can go up to 35 or 30, 35. Just make sure the intensity is there. I don't like to overwork the deadlift because I find for the average person, it can just put additional strain on the lower back. And honestly, a lot of us really need to work on form. Deadlift is a lift that working on form is critical. And in the meantime, doing 25, 30 reps per day is probably a good place, capped out for most of us. A lot of the programs I put my clients on are 6x3 or 8x3 every minute on the minute. And just focus on progression. I find just with that 18 to 24, sometimes up to 30 reps, folks are making really good, consistent progress. Jay Parker, yeah, Scott's head of the Scotland. Can't wait to try some in there. TJL is at Big M. Appreciate you being an insider. Do you change your routine significantly when you increase running volume? I'm currently a slow runner and trying to go for a 50 mile in December. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, if you're running a lot, I don't have, depending on your schedule, I don't have a lot of time to lift in the gym. I really, really don't. We run 2 hours a day, sometimes longer once a week. So if you're training for a 50 miler, you're putting in some road work. And if you're slow like me, it's going to take some time. The program I'd probably recommend is doing something like the Drunk Russian, where you're doing 2 sets per body part per day. The workouts are about an hour per day, and you can do that 3, 4, 5 days a week, whatever your schedule allows. But even if you can only do it, 3 days a week, you're going to get some benefit from it. But yeah, do I change my focus a little bit? Do I change my training a little bit? Yeah, a little bit, because at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself what your primary goal is at that point in time in life. If you want to take a break, if you still want to try to progress and maintain muscle mass with the iron, but you want to chase a 50 miler, you might want to pull back a little bit on the volume, keep a little bit of focus on progression. So that's my best advice. Don't panic, because at the end of the day, right here and right here, your head and your drive make up for a lot. So pulling back on the volume is okay when you're chasing a secondary goal. Maybe it's sports, maybe it's martial arts, maybe it's a 50-mile run. That's okay, but just still focus on progression. Do what you can do safely. Sebastian, how many total sets per workout if you do full body training 3 times a week? You want to look at weekly volume whenever you're analyzing any type of program. So for me, depending on where I'm at, what type of training I'm doing like 12 to 15 sets per major body part: chest, shoulders, back. And for some of the smaller groups, usually 6 to 9. So you want to look at all the muscle groups you're training. You want to look at a weekly volume. Then you want to kind of break that up over 3 sessions. And if it's too much time in the gym, you're going to have to find a way to curb that back. Here's a good example. When let's say you're doing deadlifts and RDLs, but you want to get power shrugs in, but shit, you got to load another barbell. It's taking up 15 minutes, chewing up time in the gym. One thing you can do is on your last 2 sets of deadlifts, you could stand upright and just do a max set of power shrugs, right? So you don't have to load up another bar. You're doing power shrugs on the last set of deadlifts. RDLs, I'm a big fan of that. If you're doing RDLs, after your set of RDLs, hold that barbell, do a max set of power shrugs. So main point is that you can try to find ways to work in extra volume, get your stuff in on a full body without spending extra time in the gym. But to answer your question, focus on weekly volume rather than total sets per workout. That'll work out. Woodulus, are VersaGrips worth the money? I have golfer's elbow. Yes. I have a pair that looks like it's been through the war. It has been through the war. And I've had them for 11, 12 years. They're OG, they're originals. And I still use them. I spent $50 back in the day, 11 to 12 years ago, and you know what? They still work. They're durable as heck. Outside of that, with Golfer's Elbow, one of the major contributors, and I'm not a doctor, but I just found the obviously, but I found this out working with clients, is that all the grip work we do from back tends to really aggravate or contribute to tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. So what you really want to do is use a pair of VersaGrips, relieve some of that pressure on your grip, on your elbow. And if you're obsessed with grip training, do it after your back work. But absolutely, VersaGrips, I don't recommend a lot of products, but they're one of the best things you can have in your gym bag, and they last. All right, let me get some coffee and I'll move on to Brandon. Just a reminder, guys, head over to my website, superlivingtoday.com. You need a workout assessment, exercise form assessment. I got all my books, all my courses, all my t-shirts. I also have a forum. There's a forum membership. You can find a link in many of my recent videos. Come on over. It's a one-time access, no trolls, no bullshit. Let's see. Brandon Wilson. How to get your family to lift. I am passionate with the idea that strength training is good for long-term health. That's a good question. It's very hard to motivate somebody to lift. It's really difficult to do. I have no magical solutions for that. I really, really don't. Getting somebody to do something they might not be interested in, is very difficult. All you can really do is continue to do what you love and maybe find some fun ways for them to get engaged, with it. So, Woodulus, lots of great beers waiting for you in Scotland. Enjoy. Thank you, sir. I'm going to be trying to run 10 days over there, so we're going to actually try to limit our beers maybe to one a day. Right, so we'll see.
That's how good they are.
Justin Brock. I love to get great tips and info here. Thank you. I appreciate your support. I always try to do my best to help you guys out with no bullshit advice. WMW and Animations. Thanks for answering my question. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Ben on Adventures. Can you address how some think we are so fragile and can't lift weights, run, etc.? It's a complex question, but it really all comes back to bodybuilding, nonsense. And I was there myself. There's a belief that if you do anything other than lift, it's going to steal your gains. If you masturbate, it's going to steal your gains. If you run, it's going to steal your gains. It's nonsense. It's misguided. If you're training properly, you're going to make gains. You're going to make progress. You're going to build strength. You're going to build muscle. Really, it comes down to the guys that want it. I obsess over this because if there's just one thing I could get across to people, and that is, if you really want it, you're going to get it. There's no magic programs. There's no magic, certainly there are good programs, but, if you want it, you're going to get it. And that's what I'm trying to show people right now. I have, in March, I'm going to be doing a 12-hour race. Goal is 60K. In May, I'm going to be running for my first 100 miler. In July, I'm going to be back at it for another 12-hour. And in December, I'm going to be doing 4 marathons in 4 days at 4 corners, hopefully. But I haven't lost any muscle mass. I have not. And sometimes we need to step out of the bodybuilding world and look at athletes. Baseball players. The average baseball player these days, and if you go to a game, you can see this a little bit easier. They have a reasonable degree of muscle mass. They're not bodybuilders, but football players, rugby players, they have mass. It's not like you're going to become a stick figure. Sometimes we have a tendency to look at runners and think runners are skinny. So if I run, I'm going to be skinny. Here's what I've learned being around runners for the last 18 months. 95% of them don't lift. They don't lift. That's why they're fucking skinny. That's the equation. They're skinny. We run into one guy every race that is running with his shirt off. He's a runner. He's a lifter. He looks jacked and ripped, and he might only be 182 pounds. But I swear to God, if you look at his physique Every one of us, nearly every one of us would like to look like that guy, would like to. And he is busting his balls, busting his big juicy testicles in the gym and running. So it's just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. Brett, keep skipping my question. Brett, I do not skip your question, and I apologize for that. YouTube is very weird that way. Sometimes every single video, somebody will say you're skipping my question. I guarantee I'm not. I'm just not seeing it. That's a YouTube glitch, and it's not me. So I apologize for that, but just keep posting that up. If I miss any of your guys' questions, head over to Instagram at Ben the Barman, send me your question, and I will answer it. WMW Animations. Doing 20 sets of chest one day versus splitting it into 2 days. Is there really any difference? Theoretically there is. On paper, frequency has some benefit on paper, but there's other, ultimately, and this is proven with just looking at the body of work. If you work hard, and I did a video on this on the numbers, the difference between full body frequency training and body part splits. Over the period of 4 or 5 years, the difference is trivial. It's really, really trivial and overblown. Do what you like to do, train hard, get a lot stronger than you are now. I like to move my clients from full body starting out to an A-B split, and then eventually to get more recovery on most of my clients are on an A-B split. Some of them are on a body part split. So I keep them on frequency, but those that are really training balls up, that have a lot of strength, usually I move them to more of a lower frequency type of training just for joint recovery, things like that. There's more aspects in training than just muscles. You have joints and tendons and ligaments and central nervous system, all that kind of stuff. So there's more than just muscles in the body. So sometimes we have to structure a training program around a client's specific needs regarding that stuff. Spike, I love trap bar deadlifts and can recover more quickly than standard. Would doing exclusively trap bar deadlifts sacrifice any sort of back size? I don't know. I mean, if you get really, look, the honest truth is, if you're crushing your rows, dumbbell and barbell rows, crushing your pull-ups and lat pull-downs, crushing your seated cable rows and machine rows and all that kind of stuff, and that's your bread and butter for back training. If you just do trap bar deadlifts, they're going to be good for your traps. They're going to be like the icing on the cake for your back training. So no, I don't believe so. I still like the floor deadlift though. I still like doing both. Christian. I've gotten VersaGrips and straps after seeing one of Steve's videos and have gotten much better. I'm glad you can notice that because if you give them, 4 to 6 months, you'll probably find out that your elbow tendonitis is much better. Paul, too many couch potatoes. There are too many couch potatoes, too many couch experts. And at the end of the day, the iron teaches you a lot. The iron, over many, many years, adding a lot of strength. Guys, I got about 12 minutes left. If you have any questions, now is the time to squeeze them in. Sebastian, generally I keep concentric part of the rep as fast as possible. How long should the eccentric last? Well, first off, I'm not going to address the concentric because, you do what you need to do. But as far as the eccentric, the lowering of a weight, what I teach to my wife is what? When you're lowering the weight.
More reps?
No, control the weight or...
It controls you.
Control the weight or it controls you. I don't like to purposely slow it down, but it has to be controlled. Control the weight or it controls you. What do I mean by that? If you're not controlling the weight during an eccentric, it's going to be sloppy, loose. You're going to have a tendency to beat up your joints and muscles and stuff like that and increase the likelihood of tears. So if you want to go a little bit slower, that's fine. I'm not a fan of that, but at least control the eccentric so it's not all wild. See, Lightning 1 says press for quads. Not sure what that means. Maybe I missed something. Wade says, love the channel. Thank you, Wade. What's your top advice for trying to hang on to strength while cutting a lot of weight? My top advice is to never train above probably 87.5% of your 1 rep max. You're going to lose some strength. But if you're trying to do your old heavy sets above 5 reps, while you're probably losing some strength, it's a huge recipe for disaster. Don't do it. But secondary to that, my top advice is to know, and I've stressed this earlier, that you're going to probably lose some strength while cutting. That's the nature of the beast. But to know that muscle memory is a real thing, and once you get done with your cutting, it's going to be easier for that strength to come back. So focus on getting that fat off and just trust the reality that once you're done, your strength is probably going to come back if you're smart. Etiquette, Sharma. Can you please tell me why one shoulder is taller than the other? You got a medical issue. You might have some sort of an impingement. I can't really say. But, I have one trap that's higher than the other. I got some kind of wacky impingement issue in my back from 34 years of training. If that's an issue, it could be spinal. It could be an impingement issue. I can't say. I'm not a doctor. If it doesn't hurt you, continue to do what you do, but I would definitely see a doctor about it because that is something that is not normal. Neo says, hello, humanity. Neo is giving a lot of extra credit to my viewer base, calling them humane. I appreciate that. Smart. Isn't all that running unhealthy? Isn't unhealthy? No, man. If you look, I'm not... if you look at the research with endurance training, it actually strengthens telomere length. So I want you to search telomere length. And I'm sorry, I wasn't laughing at your question. Search telomere length and longevity. What we know currently is that endurance training, a lot of endurance training, actually is beneficial for longevity, from what we know. But you know what? As what I'm doing unhealthy, sure, it's not the healthiest thing. But playing in the NFL is unhealthy. Trying to become a top strength powerlifter is unhealthy. There are risks in everything. There are risks in everything physical. And at the end of the day, it's our choice to decide what is worth it for us. I'm a big boy, okay? And I'm 52 years old. And I've had everybody, and this is not directed at the person asking the question, but it's reality. I've had everybody under the fucking sun tell me how unhealthy it is for me, right? And I am 265 days in. I've run 5 marathons this year, 50K, 100K, and God knows how many half marathons, not on the pavement, but out in the woods. Vertical changes, roots, rocks, snow. I've run with lung infections and C. diff and all kinds of crap. I feel absolutely perfect. That's it. And at the end of the day, what we choose to do, it's our business. It can be unhealthy if people aren't smart. Lifting is unhealthy. Lifting's more unhealthy because, honestly, 80% of the videos and shit I see on YouTube and Instagram, and this is getting me riled up a little bit, but 80% of the shit I see is just a clusterfuck of fuckery. It's a clusterfuck of major fuckery. The form sucks. The kids these days act like they've never seen fucking YouTube or Google. They don't know how to fucking search form videos. We got 8 billion videos on technique and no one can seem to figure it out. So to me, lifting is dangerous, because, nobody can seem to get their head out of their ass and figure out how to use good form in an age of, information overload. So I'll stop my rant right there. Dash, do you know how to fix shin splints? I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. But I will say one thing I've learned, and this may or may not be contributing to shin splints, I do not know. But one thing I do know is if you run on pavement or if you are running on a treadmill, it's going to beat the living crap out of your body. It is. You might not know it. You might be young and in good health and just youth is covering this stuff up. But the best advice I can give you is if you're dealing with shin splints, perhaps you might want to try running on a trail. It's a trail sounds more difficult, and in many ways it is, because you have elevation changes and roots and rocks and more perilous possibilities, right? But when we run, we've been running again for 265 days with rest days, not continuously. But one thing we find after all that running and after all those miles, when we go on pavement for a mile, it beats us up. Me and my little butterfly wife who weighs like $120. It doesn't, right? It beats us both up. So if you have shin splints, I might suggest. Yanutka, hello from Iowa. Hey, Iowa. We were just in Iowa. We ran in Iowa, I don't know, month and a half ago. Dubuque, Thanksgiving? Yeah, Thanksgiving. Carl, do you still enjoy cigars? Yes. I just answered this question a little bit a while ago, but I absolutely do. Just don't have much time for it. Lucas Williams, my flat bench has stopped progressing for quite a while now. Will stopping flat benching for a month and focusing on incline and weighted dips have carryover? You know what? Your assistance exercises can always have the potential for carryover. But if you have truly plateaued, something else is going on. Because a true plateau is extremely rare and extremely unlikely. What happens to most guys is that they'll see increases like this, consistent increases the first year and a half, and then things slow. They might be only adding 5 pounds of their bench each month, and they consider that a plateau. That's not a plateau. That's a normal change in progression. So I would have to look at things. But if you haven't gained 1 rep on your bench press in 6 months, first thing to do is look at your diet. The second thing, to make sure you're consistent. There's something in there that's wrong. There's something in there that's broken, and changing exercises is very unlikely to fix it. So I hope that helped. Yanni, hi. How would you balance volume for perfect posture? No idea, man. That is completely out of my lane. One thing I will say is that when it comes to upper body training for balance, you want to focus on a vertical press and a vertical pull, a horizontal press and a horizontal pull. That's rowing, dumbbell rows, barbell rows, obviously bench press, push-ups, overhead presses, lat pull-downs, pull-ups. You want to have those in the mix each week, and that's your best bet for overall upper body balance. Yanni, do you recommend doing 9 to 15 sets per week per muscle group? Advanced lifters, they're going to know what they need to train. For beginners, 9 to 12 is a good place to start. And as they have added a lot of strength, then they can increase volume, maybe 12 to 15, maybe 12 to 18 sets for intermediate lifters. Yanutka, is there any advantage to varying the rest time between sets? No. And now let me explain. That's overcomplicating things. That's the biggest value is in progression. There is value in rest pause training. There is value in pump work. Scientifically, we know that there's an indication that pump work may help with the hypertrophy process, maybe 2, maybe 5%, who knows. So there can be value in doing rest pause training, but I would not advocate rest pause training or block training until you reach a early or intermediate level of strength. But varying rest periods, no benefit at all. With the big compound movements, you really want to make sure that you're mentally and physically ready to go again, because what we want to do with those is not risk injury or encourage injuries. And we want to be, we want to have our full focus on form physically and mentally. So I hope that helps. And let's see. Robert Graham, recommend any links for cable chest exercises. I like them, but I feel my form needs improvement. Cable chest exercises, not really. Usually if a client has a question about that, I'll do some research, but not offhand. I would join my Massive Iron group on Facebook and maybe ask that question in there. Have you ever tried strongman training? No. I've dabbled with some of the implements with friends, but never consistently. No, not at all. Just not something I'm not passionate about. I don't hate it. I'm just not passionate about it. Blaine, just curious, which country do you live in? U.S. I got VersaGrips based on your recommendations. Grip strength has improved over time, and I still need them only for working sets of deadlift. I'm glad you invested in VersaGrips. They're one of the best things you can have in your gym bag. You're welcome, Smart. Zen60, my phone died, so I don't know if you answered my question. Okay, sorry about that. Post it up again. Smart is $120 equivalent to 120 pounds. Yeah, it's just me being a dipshit, but yeah, $120 is 120 pounds. How often do you treat yourself to flour and sugar? In a perfect world, very minimally. Our average daily diet is right now, I get up and I'm trying to get away from protein bars. I get up and that's about my only splurge of the day. I'll usually eat a complete cookie, and that has no. I don't really know what they have for sugar or flour. I just know they're pretty darn healthy, but that might have a little bit of it. But for lunch, we've been having steelhead trout and black and white rice. Sometimes for a third meal before we run, we will have like one of these low carb wraps of 40 calories with chicken and veggies. So again, I'm having a low carb wrap, trace or trivial amounts of processed sugar and flour. That's if I have another meal before I run. For dinner, we have black rice and eggs, stir fry with meats and lots of veggies. Sometimes we just cook random stuff. We generally, in a perfect world, we try to just limit it to trace trivial. I would say 2 to 5% of my daily intake. Let's see. Riley87. Sorry, that's a lot of vowels. Many thanks. Have a safe trip and enjoy Scotland. Thank you, sir. Feliciano, good day. What's up? Paris, Southern California here. Hey, California, glad you're here. Christopher Lenz, is it dangerous to hit shoulder press twice a week? Nope, I've been doing it for 34 years. Just take good care of your shoulders and listen to your body. Will I have shoulder issues in later years? You know what? Guys that are lifting for 30 years, most of them I know have some small degree of shoulder issue. The best advice I can give you, if you want to avoid shoulder issues over the years, is build a good quality strength level without trying to be a big superhuman, presser. I did 315 on seated strict overhead press. It took me a lot of work to get there. I'm not a big fan of low volume shoulder work. I like more volume work, 8 to 10 reps per set. For volume. So that's my best advice. Avoid the low rep work over time. Really get your bench press form down. Really work on your bench press form, and that'll help minimize some of the issues in the future. Francis Drake, what's your opinion on wide grip overhead press? Here's where you should be, okay? Let me explain something. You want your wrists about over your elbows. If your wrists are outside, you're going to get this internal shoulder rotation. You like that? It's like a new dance craze. If it's inside, when you're going to get that external outward shoulder rotation. So really, you want your wrists above your elbows so you're not putting any awkward shoulder rotation pressure on your shoulders. I'm not a fan of the wide grip overhead press for that reason. Feliciano, are you into resistance bands? Yeah, we do use resistance bands in our gym. We have door bands. I have a set off a set off Amazon that I use, but those are door bands. I generally don't use resistance bands other than the door bands. So I don't like using resistance bands outside of the door bands because it's just awkward and there's too many other good exercises. All right, guys, about to jump off. Last question. Thanks anyway. You and John Meadows are my go-to years of experience. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm jumping off and we're going to go hit a workout here. Just a reminder, I have a members only section. Please join. Please join. It's only $2.99 a month. Head over to my website, superlivingtoday.com. You can find all my goodies, t-shirts, books, if you need help with stuff, bench press courses, my Drunk Russian program. If you need coaching, hit me up on Instagram, @BenTheBarman. I'll be in Scotland for 10 days, but I'll try to answer your question. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and
Stay super sexy.
stay super sexy, people. The fate of the world depends on it.